Hi everyone, welcome to our SIGUCCS webinar on mentoring and professional growth. My name is Beth Rugg and I'm the SIGUCCS Professional Development Coordinator. I'll be the facilitator today. Today is going to be a little bit different. Mac and I are just going to have kind of a question and answer period so that he can help describe his mentoring philosophy and his experiences along with 30 years of his higher education career. I do want to introduce Keith McIntosh to you. He's the Associate Vice President for Information Technology Services and the Chief Information Officer at Ithaca College. But before I turn it over to Mac, I just want to make sure everyone is in listen-only mode. That helps us just so that there's no background noise, but we certainly do want to encourage questions, so you can chat that in using the question panel, or you can raise your hand and I'll see that and I'll let Mac know that there's a question in the audience. So can I just make sure everybody understands the instructions? Can you go ahead and raise your hands right now? Perfect. And then last but not least, can you go ahead and say hi to me through the chat window, through the question window? Perfect. Thank you, everyone. So I think we'll just dive right in, and we're going to talk about mentoring and professional growth. As Mac and I were brainstorming about the best way to kind of bring out all the information, we just decided we'd follow a simple Q&A format. So I'm going to advance the slide. And first, Mac, we want to hear about your story and your mentoring experiences.
Well, first, I'd like to say thank you to Beth for inviting me to be on this important topic in this session, and I'd like to thank all the attendees for being here today, and hopefully we have a good conversation, a good dialogue about mentoring, something that's near and dear to me, something that I feel like is a very important aspect of a professional's career growth and career ladder. My mentoring experiences began early on from my father, James McIntosh, when I was a young man, and he was in the Air Force, and he was a 30-year Air Force veteran. And I got to watch and see how he progressed in his career and how he helped young folks coming up behind him. And mentoring was a big part of his life to help him succeed, and it was a big passion for him to help others. He was always encouraging to me that once you move to a certain level, you get a level of knowledge to give back and reach back behind you to help others move forward. And that stuck with me to this today. When I joined the Air Force some time ago, I spent 24.5 years in the Air Force, and that was a big key for me to be successful in my military career, and it was also a big key for me to be successful in my higher education career, both as a mentor of others, but more importantly, being a protege, having mentors who helped me progress in my career, whether it was helping me with something strategic with understanding how to lead and manage a large group of people, or as specific as becoming a better speaker or communicator, written or oral. So it was extremely beneficial, and I can attest that I've been very blessed to have a lot of success in my career, and I cannot think of a more critical component to my success than the mentoring of those who came before me and helped me out.
Thank you, Mac. Oh, I got to get my mouse on the right screen. Okay, so from your perspective and your history, what is mentoring?
Yeah, great question, and it could run a lot of ways. But for me, I tell people I'm a pretty laid-back old country boy. So it's just somebody who has experience to advise and counsel someone to help them find their path or help them move forward to reach their goal. It's as simple as having somebody more experience helping someone else move forward. And for me, it can happen informally in an unstructured manner, or it can happen, I think the better ones happen when they're more formal and structured. And it really should be, in my opinion, a professional relationship between a mentor and a protege. So that's what mentoring is for me. It's just helping somebody move forward.
Perfect. I actually like that you use the term protege, because I think in our SIGUCCS mentoring program we struggled with mentee versus mentor, but I think protege is probably more apt description.
Yeah, I like protege. It sounds a lot more professional. Mentee sounds close to Mentos, and I don't want to, So I like mentee. I mean, you can go either way with that, but I like protege.
Mac, why is mentoring important?
Yeah, so for me, mentoring, it's one of the primary ways for somebody to assess their career plans and to help them to develop a roadmap to achieve it. So for me personally, and those who I've been very fortunate to mentor, usually the conversation centers around folks have received training and development. They may have formal education, they may not have formal education, but they have not had the opportunity to be mentored, to have the experience of a senior leader help guide them through to help them reach their goals. And sometimes, many of the times that I've mentored folks, this is actually helping to identify where they want to go. Some folks are like, well, I'm stuck where I'm at, not quite sure where I want to go. And so as a mentor, you have to really be capable to interrogate, question, help draw out what a person is really desiring to do with their life. But also, mentoring to me is important because it helps provide an opportunity for someone to learn from someone else who's been there and done that, so they don't make the same mistakes, right? So when I came out as a person who I said I wanted to be a leader and manager, and I definitely wanted to be a chief information officer in my life. I had to reach out to those ahead of me who had been in the role for a while, and so they could help me look at where I'm at in my career at the time and say, based on where you are, here are a couple things we would suggest for you to do as your next step. And I followed those, and that helped me get to where I am today. Mentoring also, I think, has a lot of times when I'm mentoring folks, they do know what they want to do. They're just not quite sure about it, or they lack the confidence. And I think one thing that a mentor can do is a person can bounce their ideas off a seasoned veteran, a seasoned professional, and they can say, you know what, I think you're on the right track. And all these types of conversations will help instill confidence in that person. And then as they progress through and they have reached many milestones or many goals, they get a sense of accomplishment. So those two things go hand in hand with helping propel that person forward and helping them promote their personal growth, which is also another reason why I think it's important. And then lastly, I think one of the things that mentoring can do is help a protege get access to, it's not all the time, but most of the time, they get access to new professional contacts through their mentor. So like for me, when I came out of the Air Force and then moved into higher ed, I felt confident about my leadership and management skills. I feel confident about my ability to manage budgets and things of that nature. One thing I was not sure of was, what is higher ed about? So I reached out to folks cold turkey, and we're going to have questions about this later on. And but they had an affinity to me. So when I started off reaching out mentors in higher ed, I said, who are people who left the military, who went into higher ed, because that's the journey I'm taking. And so we could speak the same language. And that helped me in my initial first 2 or 3 years in higher ed. And then once I got my feet wet, it helped me to learn. They could connect me to other people who could help me with taking my knowledge about higher education to the next level.
Great, thank you. Anyone in the audience, do you have any questions? Just remember, feel free to go ahead and chat them in. I know Mac is very dynamic and well able to answer anything off the cuff. All right, Mac, so I'm not seeing any. Oh, we got a question, I think, coming in.
I hope so. I want to make this applicable to the audience members.
Or maybe not. So let's just go on and move to the next slide. But just remember, everybody out there, we really do want to make this as interactive as possible. Okay, so the next question, how does mentoring fit into a professional development plan?
So for me, this is a really great question, and I thought about it for a long time, and I was going to wax eloquent about something, but this comes down to this. I think as we progress through our career field, especially in technology, we're going to acquire the knowledge, skills, and abilities through the technical training or formal education often at our institution to help us, for whatever that is in the near future or current. But what mentoring does is says, and that seems more tactical in nature to me, and that's an important piece of your professional development plan. But mentoring is saying, if you're going to be a professional, and let's say you become into becoming a professional in your mid-20s, and you're going to work to your mid-60s, well, there's 40 years that you need to develop a long-term strategic look at how you want to progress throughout your career. And I think there's no better tool or resource than mentoring to help you with developing that. I think you can pick any endeavor that you choose to do, that there's probably somebody who's been in that role ahead of you that you can reach out to that can help provide guidance and experience to help you develop your strategic long-term and continuous development. So that's where I see mentoring fitting, as being more of a strategic and looking at your career from a holistic point of view, and to help you with strengthening, to enhance your strengths, minimize your weaknesses, and help you further develop to reach your goals.
And just as a side comment, Mac, I was thinking a little bit about this for myself personally, and I know I realize somehow I've just learned by doing in much of my career, and then I go to look at some of the educational opportunities that are there, and I'm not quite a new director, I'm not quite a new leader, because I've already gained that kind of experience by just working the front lines. And I think for me personally, mentoring would kind of fill that gap. So I've learned things by doing, but it would still be great to have a mentor who could bring that kind of other perspective that would also still help me learn and grow.
Yeah, I think that's a perfect point. Even for myself, 30 plus years of experience, I feel like I still have years left to work and more things to give, but I also have a lot more that I want to learn. And I have at least 3 folks that I've actually had formal mentoring relationships. These are seasoned CIOs at prestigious institutions around the country, and that relationship moved into more of a mentor-protege to more of a colleague-friend. But even now, as I reach certain things that I have questions about or concerns about, or I just want to bounce my ideas and thoughts off someone, they are there. And I think they should always be there. They should, no matter what stature you reach in your career, you should always have 2 or 3 mentors. A team of mentors is what I've always tried to profess to get for folks to do, and then have mentors for specific subjects. So if, for example, I need more expertise in finance, it doesn't mean that I need to go find somebody who is a CFO to help me with understanding how finances in higher education works. It might be somebody that's a frontline staff that has an extreme amount of experience. So in that case, I'd have a finance mentor that I could go to that could help me with understanding how to navigate the finances of that institution, or finances in general. Does that make sense?
Perfect. Thank you. All right, so we're going to move on. What are the critical success factors for a mentoring relationship?
So for me, I think it starts with honesty, commitment, trust, communication. I know that sounds very cliche, but I think this is something starting right up front. When I have a relationship with folks, I say, be careful what you ask for if you ask me to be your mentor, because I'm going to be very direct. I'm going to be very honest, because if I'm going to commit to this relationship and help you grow, I'm going to be, there's no time to sugarcoat communication with you, or sugarcoat what I think is the challenge or what you need to work on. And I'm only going to be as effective as a mentor to a protege if they're equally honest and committed and trust and share communication with me. Additionally, I think the best relationships and critical success factors for a relationship would be that there's a clear formal start and finish to the relationship. And typically, this is just for me, and many others could do it differently, but I think at the outset, I try to figure out a way to say we can start and be done with the formal relationship within 6 months. It may go 7, it may go 8, but let's start off with 6 months. And because I think you need to put a definitive time on that and say definitively what do we want to get accomplished in that 6 months, and it makes us a lot more productive together. We also need to work on mutually agreed upon goals. So, the first meeting or first set of meetings would be, what do you want to do? Why do you want to do it? And then I could set out expectations of what do they expect from me, and I can say what I expect of them. So let's make sure we have these clear ground rules set up, and we have a shared understanding of what each of us expects from this relationship. I think from a protege's perspective, I think you should be looking for someone who will believe in you and wants to see you succeed, somebody that cares enough for you to want to see you succeed. And I also would encourage the proteges, be prepared. When I say be prepared is, if I asked you, why do you want a mentor, go, I don't know. You need to have thought a little bit about it. If you can't get to that point, and I think you need to take some time to really assess that, and then have some somewhat clear idea of where you want to go and why you want a mentor. And then that can help kickstart the relationship. And then I'm going to come back to what I said at the beginning. Trust, commitment, honesty, and communication.
Perfect. Mac, we do have a question from Scott. Scott's wondering, are mentors ever selected for their non-work qualifications? He's always viewed a mentor as someone who's ahead of me career-wise, but as a brand new parent, he finds himself wondering if there is someone who could mentor me on maintaining a good work-life balance, and then how do you find a mentor for a non-career topic like that?
That's a great question. So I'm trying to think of a good analogy there. I don't have one, but I think for me is don't be afraid to ask folks. So let's say it's your current institution. Be observant. And at my institution, I could think of a couple people that pop up that are senior leaders who have young children, and I wonder about, I know the demand on my time, and I think their demand on their time is more, and my children are out of the house, and their children are in elementary school, and I wonder how they do it. I think if I was Chris, I would find people that are like that at your institution, and do not be afraid to ask them. Approach them. And that's something we're going to talk about a little bit later. I would say there's probably folks around your local area, because there's no mentoring organization that I know of. I think SIGUCCS has a great program here, and that's why we're here today, that says, can I go to this website and find a person that has the following qualities, and then I can marry them up like Match.com. That would be great. I don't think we have anything like that. If we do, please let me know. But I think for us, we should observe and be willing to speak out and ask people questions like, when I was coming up, I really admired the way a person communicated with folks one-on-one. And I was, believe it or not, I was a shy guy when I was a younger man. But I sat down and I said, hey, look, I just want to ask you a question. How do you do that? And it was just, I stumbled into it, and then we went from there. And I think you just have to be willing to be observant and then be willing to go ask that person. And if that person accepts it, fine. If not, move on to another person. I don't know if that helps you out, Chris.
Thank you. Scott, just chime in if you have any more follow-ups.
Scott.
All right. Let's just move on to the next question. What are, and I think you've touched on this, what are critical skills for a mentor?
Excuse me, sorry about the cough. So for me, I feel like the first thing that came to my mind was passion. I know that doesn't sound like a skill, but a person has to be passionate about wanting to be a mentor in the first place, right? Because this is usually something that you can do over and above and outside your normal day job. Then the person needs to have the experience and the background to mentor on that topic or that area. Then they must be able to communicate. And as I was saying, they need to be able to communicate on a one-to-one, deep level, direct, and an honest relationship building type of method. And then something that, these are things that I live by. The last one is a mentor mindset. By mentor mindset, this is somebody who wants to be a servant. They truly feel like, and this is just for me personally, that I want to give back. I've been blessed in my life to have people who looked out for me to help me move from point A to point B to point C. Help me through my challenges, help me through my obstacles, help me through my shortcomings. And I think I owe it to the institution or the career of higher education. I owe it to IT professionals to look back behind me and say, I want to help this institution or help this career field in perpetuity. How do I do that? I seek out other people and say, I'd be willing to mentor you and help you in your career because somebody did it for me. So those are four things I think: passion, experience, good communication skills, and a mentor mindset.
Thank you. I'm getting excited just listening to you talk. How does one go about finding a mentor? I mean, you touched on it, but
yeah,
maybe
so this is
elaborate.
a really good question. So this is where I get real direct in my communication. I tell people, start where you are. Look around your own institution. Look there. Check locally within your community. check out other industries. So for example, some people come in and work at a higher education institution, walk in straight from the parking lot, go to their office, they might interact with folks, but really start getting out and looking around and see who are people that you admire, who are people doing something similar to what you think you might want to do, and then start having conversations. Try to initiate a conversation with them. Be professional. If you're not comfortable with a face-to-face cold call, or shoot them an email. Hi, my name is Keith McIntosh. I've really observed you from afar. I really admire how you carry yourself or how you do whatever that may be. I have an aspiration to do something similar to what you're doing, and I was really love to have an opportunity to have a conversation with you about perhaps you becoming my mentor. So these are ways to help you get started. Use the internet. Search Google. Use LinkedIn. LinkedIn is a great resource. My daughter just recently graduated college, and she chose a career field I know nothing about, and so I have no contacts in that area. But she and I sat down over a holiday break and just went through LinkedIn and started showing her how to search and look for people that were doing similar things. And then I showed her how I have helped other people reach out and just introduce, and she's made great contacts. And those folks are willing. It's surprising to me. You know, we think that folks are too busy, but I think most people do have a mentor mindset, and they know that they were helped and they want to give back. So they're just waiting for somebody to reach out to them. And so like for me, when I came into higher ed, and then I just want to share this story because I live by what I'm talking about, is I reached out to Dr. Wayne Brown, and he is the CIO at Excelsior University, Excelsior College, I'm sorry. And he also is the president for the Center for Higher Education CIO Studies. And so he was a perfect person for me to reach out to for several reasons. One, he's doing longitudinal studies about higher education CIOs. I aspire to be a CIO in higher education. Two, he was a retired Air Force Lieutenant Colonel. I'm retired Air Force as well. So now this is a great person for me to reach out to. I do not know him from Adam, but the Google search brought him up. I wrote an email to him and explained who I was, talked about my career, and said, here's why I'm reaching out to you. And to this day, Dr. Brown, I call him Wayne now, he and I are very close. I'm actually the chair of SIGUCCS now because of that relationship that started with a cold email 9 years ago. So that would be something that I would encourage you. That's how you can get started. But before you reach out to somebody, think about who you are, think about what you need. Then search for people that are professionals who can fulfill that want or need. And then, like I said, contact them. Be prepared, but be professional too. Be prepared to, they say yes, what's going to be the next part of the conversation? Be prepared if they say no. Don't let that be a setback for you. Keep going. There are so many people out there that are doing great things and have a mentor mindset. So sometimes people reach out to me, and I have now, because I've learned, I have a quota on how many people I can mentor at one time. So when somebody calls me and says, Mac, I'd love you to be a mentor, and I'm at my capacity, I have to respectfully tell them no. You know, and I said, I'm in the middle of 3 engagements or 4 engagements right now, and if somebody drops off, I'll be happy to mentor you, but, you know, continue looking. So there's more than one reason why people say no. Don't let that discourage you. When you do get a hold of somebody, I think it's very important to tell them what you need, why you need it, and why you reached out to them specifically. Just don't say, I needed a mentor because. You know, when I reached out to Dr. Wayne Brown, I said, Dr. Wayne Brown, I'm retired Air Force. You're retired Air Force. I see you made the successful transition from Air Force into higher ed. I'm now in higher ed. I see you're now as Chief Information Officer. I want to be a Chief Information Officer. I couldn't find anybody better for me where I am who has the same background experience to help me navigate those waters. So I was very specific about what I wanted, why I needed it, and why I needed them. And then try to find programs like the ones here, like SIGUCCS is offering. So these are the ways I think you can help yourself get a mentor. And the bottom line for me is don't be discouraged by rejection. Keep going. Keep plugging away.
Yeah, that really comes clear in what you're saying. And for those of you on the call, we will be opening up our SIGUCCS mentoring program for applications for both looking for proteges and mentors. Probably within the next week or so, we'll collect applications for the month of November and then look to make the matches in December, with the program starting up in January and running through October. So in many ways, even though I'd never talked to Mac, well, until last year's conference, the program we've set up meets some of the guidelines that MAC has put forward as far as clear goals and for a limited period of time. So that might be an opportunity for those of you on this webinar as well. Mac, I want to let you know that Scott has put out here, has anyone looked at Everwise? It's not exactly what Mac's looking for in terms of an individual doing a Match.com type of thing, but it looks like it's somewhere that you can pay Everwise to test my staff and match them up with mentors in a Match.com style. So for those of you who are interested, www.getever.com. I don't think we've explored it, so I'm not endorsing it, but it might be something to check out.
Well, I think that's great. I'm glad he brought that up. It's something that I know we're in a SIGUCCS webinar, but I'm also in another organization, and I'm involved with the mentoring program or mentoring efforts there. And I think there's something that we could do much better as higher education to help our IT professionals with something like that. And I would hope we could do it in a way that wasn't that was cost prohibitive. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
I think there's something specific about higher education that is different than other verticals, and I think there's enough of us that are senior members who would love to get back or be able to talk about a certain topic, a particular area, and I think we need to have that kind of capability, whether it's SIGUCCS or some other organization. I think we should be able to do that, but I appreciate him sharing that.
Thank you. All right, moving on to the next question. Mac, what myths exist around mentoring?
Well, you've moved around some questions. This went a little different on me, but that's okay.
That's
okay. This is good. This is good. It keeps me on my toes.
Did I go too fast?
No, this is good. So, myths around the idea of mentoring. Mentoring is easy. The truth for me is, no, it's not. It should be challenging, right? Now, let me explain that a little bit. That's why I say be careful what you ask for when you ask me to be your mentor. I usually ask tough questions, and I think I have enough experience now to know when somebody's kind of mailing it in, and so there's an answer to my question, the first one, but then it makes me think that there's 2 or 3 more additional follow-up questions to ask, and when we ask it and we actually peel the onion back, we get to the true core, the truth, and then that's where we start really exploring the deeper challenge or the deeper effort that's going to be required to help somebody go from where they are to where they want to go. So for me, if it was really easy and it just went a certain level, then why is mentoring so important? I think for me personally, now others might say something differently, I think it shouldn't be painful, but it's not easy. It should be challenging because you're really trying to say how, you need to do something different than the status quo to get you going to where you need to be. It's like my grandmother used to tell me, if you always do what you always did, you always get what you always got. And so what you're trying to do is say, I'm trying to help you, whoever you may be, move from what you've always been doing to do something different to get to where you want to go. Right? So at some point in my career, I wanted to be a chief information officer, but I didn't have the educational, the academic pedigree to do that. My mentor said, you must do it. No unequivocally, there's no way of getting around it. And when they checked in with me, they're like, have you started this? And they pushed me. So the conversation is words, yes, and it might be easy to have the dialogue, but the work that's going to be required was challenging. So the journey to get to where I am today took a lot of steps, but it was based on the advice and counsel and wisdom of mentors who helped me out. So I say, no, it's not easy. It should be challenging. Mentoring is for a lifetime. You bet. It absolutely should be. I would caveat it with this by saying I have formal relationships with folks for a period of time, and then the relationship is officially completed, and then I have a peer comrade relationship thereafter. So when I say that, mentoring means throughout your career, your lifetime, you should have a cadre of mentors that you've embraced or had connections with throughout your career. You'll always have the advice and counsel of somebody that you had an affinity for. You'll always bounce ideas off of them. But if you really are struggling with a certain area or you want to make a big move, you want to get really strategic about that, and you want to have somebody that's going to focus in on helping you for that particular juncture in your career. And that's a formal relationship that is limited in scope and time. Mentoring is for only for young professionals. Like I said earlier, I still have mentors. I have mentor teams, and I have peer mentors. These are colleagues that are at or around the same level as me that have expertise. So I have one good colleague who's really the guy I go to when it comes to organizational design. I have another person I go to who is a person who is with emotional and social intelligence, and these are folks that I work with to say, I am not as experienced or as knowledgeable as you. Can you help me with what we're trying to do at this point in time in my career? So mentors at a large scale, mentors in specifics, and definitely mentoring for a lifetime. It's not just for the young, it's for anybody at any time in their career. I need to know more about before I become a mentor or someone else. When I was younger, I used to think that. And then I realized, that was a disservice because there's mentoring at various levels. And I think as soon as you gain, going back to the definition when I say a mentor is, as soon as you have experience that you can impart or give to somebody else who has less experience, you can become a mentor. So if that's 16 years old, that's 20 years old, that's 30 years old, is that something I think you can give back at any time you have experience. And then if you have the passion, experience, and communication skills and the mindset, which develop over time, you don't have to be perfect at it. I am much better at being a mentor now than I was when I first started, right? And every time I have a mentoring relationship with somebody, I grow and learn more about me, and I grow in my skills and my ability to communicate and mentor others. I learn what works. Sometimes I mentor and I say, I'm going to do this. It worked with the last three people, the last three proteges I had. Doesn't work with this person, so now I'm challenged to do things differently. But anybody, as long as they have the experience to share with somebody else who has less experience and they have the passion to do so, they could be a mentor.
Thank you, Mac. One of our guests is wondering if you'd just be willing to share, I don't know if you're comfortable with this or not, but what other organizations you work with regarding mentoring?
Well, two organizations that for 2 years in a row I work with, some of you have heard of CIO Magazine, which is run, their website is CIO.com. They have a CIO Executive Council, and that was an organization that helped me shortly after I got into higher ed. It was something I aspired to be involved with. I was very fortunate that my supervisor at the time was the CIO of my institution. He valued professional development. He knew my career goals, and he agreed that that would be something that he would support. And I also had advice and counsel. Dr. Wade Brown is something to try as well. So the CIO Executive Council, it costs money to be a part of that, but you do get assigned to a team of like peers, and you go through progressive development when it comes to certain topics that will be needed for senior leaders, and then all of us have access to a senior CIO. Mine came from an industry, and I still have a relationship with that person today. The other one is SIGUCCS. I mean, I'm trying to be very nice and be respectful to SIGUCCS, but I'm very active in
fine.
Okay.
It's a small community.
Yeah, and but I think there's work to be done there, and these are things I'd love to get ideas. And when we go out to the annual conference next week, matter of fact, I think these are topics that I've definitely brought up and will bring up. These are two organizations. I think get on the listservs. If you're looking to find mentors, I think SIGUCCS has some listservs that you can that you might have an affinity with, and then you'll see who the people are the most knowledgeable, because they'll communicate a lot about things, and you can weigh, I like what they say, I don't like what they say, and you can find folks that way. Hopefully that answers the question.
Oh, I think it absolutely does. And Scott mentioned with our SIGUCCS mentoring program, we have limited people or participants to either be a protege or a mentor, not try to do both roles. It's just how we've structured it. I think probably because it's a volunteer organization, so to kind of keep it manageable and I guess personal. But I think finding other groups can perhaps bring that balance, you know, where somebody could mentor someone and yet be a protege in a different kind of community.
Yeah, I think so too.
Some of where that question was coming from.
Okay, I think yeah, I agree.
Last but not least, what kind of time commitment should one be willing to give? Now, I know you've talked a lot about a kind of very specific goal-oriented, relatively short-term, 6-month-ish type of commitment, but what does that really look like on a day-by-day or week-by-week basis?
Yeah, so that's a great question, and so I'm going to talk about my specific experience and what where I start as a program when somebody approaches me. The mentor-protege relationship and the time commitment is something we need to have a conversation about up front. I tell people typically, I feel like if we're doing, and I have years of experience with this now, so I feel committed to 6 months. Sometimes it was about 5 years ago, I was mentoring a lady that went for 12 months. But it's because this person was really at a crossroads in their career, and they were thinking about leaving the industry entirely. So it depends on what the mentor and protege are looking to do and the scope of what they're trying to get accomplished, but typically 6 months. And then for that 6 months, what I definitely try to do is up front maybe seed that we're going to have regular intervals of meeting and communication. I like to, at a very basic level, meet monthly for an hour to 2 hours. Perhaps that we will have communication via email, that's always open. Communication via text messaging, that's always open. But really a formal juncture like the initial kickoff meeting and talk about what we're going to try to get accomplished, lay out the ground rules, what's the meeting schedule going to be, and then I typically try to assign homework for the person to do outside the meeting. I don't know, I've never put any measures on how much that time commitment is, but I usually try to push people pretty hard in trying to learn and grow and say, hey, between this meeting and the next meeting, I need you to go do X, Y, and Z and come back and talk to me and let's talk about what did you learn through X, Y, and Z. And a lot of times what I find is interesting is people kind of know that that's what they want to do, but just having somebody senior to them or more experienced to them saying, I expect you to go do this, this holds them accountable to getting it done. So it could be 6 months, 1 month, 1 hour a month, or it could be 3-4 hours every 2 weeks. It just depends on what we're trying to get accomplished. And I've had the full gamut. Like I said, I've had some go 6 months, I've had some go a year.
Great, thank you so much, Matt. Oh, absolutely. And I think for those who are attending, those were all the formal questions that we had kind of spec'd out in advance. Does anyone have any other questions that you would like Mac to follow up on? I'm just waiting to see if anybody types in anything. I mean, but Mac,
I'm curious if any of the audience members have mentors or have had mentors recently. What did they like about mentors and what did they dislike about mentors?
Great question. I'm hoping somebody's going to come on in and answer.
Everybody's bashful.
We've got one person's had one. Yeah, so maybe, let's see. Another, a comment, it was hard to keep the schedule. Somebody liked having someone in the industry who could share their experiences. Someone else has had a number of mentors over the years, but they've been less formal. So those are some of our audience members' kind of experiences to date.
Yeah. So one of the things I try to do, and maybe it's just me, I try to be generous with my time. I mean, we all have day jobs and we all have personal lives. But, I try to make sure that I'm accommodating, and that's why I come back to accommodating of that person's schedule. So if that person can only meet, I try my best to do this, and it's actually blocked on my calendar. I have one now that's a regular standing meeting that's every other Tuesday from like 4 to 5 p.m. So that it's actually on my calendar. It's committed. I'm going to try to block things out so I can meet with them, and that's all I ask, and the other person's in. But I also, when that person establishes a mentoring relationship with me, I encourage them, because this person works in higher ed IT. However, when we interrogate and have questions, this person has a passion for something entirely different, far removed. And so now myself and this person are having conversations. We're both doing research about what does it take to transition from higher ed IT to go into something like that, and when would be the best time in that person's career. So it's really going to come down to a commitment. And I would encourage people to get, I appreciate that you're on the line. The fact that you're on the line means that you have you believe in mentoring, or you want to know more about mentoring. And I would say get 2 or 3, find the right people, and then be committed. Be open-minded, be teachable, but know what you want to do, and then really try to challenge yourself to do it. Find somebody who's going to help you get there, somebody who has that mentor mindset.
That's great, thank you. And a few people did say that just, making the commitment to, stick to the meeting when chaos might erupt is it's a challenge they faced in the past, and something that they really need to, hope to commit to going forward. Somebody said, I tried a once-a-month session for about a year. It was great overall, but sometimes the sessions fell during weeks that I just wasn't interested in talking about my career. It was difficult to push forward. It taught me that short-term mentoring is probably best for me, focused on small things.
Yeah, that's why
a
I
great,
stick with the
interesting
6 months.
observation. Mm-hmm.
That's why I stick with the 6 months, because if you can be specific and you can hit something, and you want the change, you want the dynamic. I mean, after 6 months with me, I think you're ready to get rid of me. You'd be tired of me. So go get somebody else that's going to look at the next thing. It's going to help propel you forward. So that's why I like the team of mentors, and that's why I like the 6-month period to be the maximum if possible, because I think just your mindset that I'm only going to have to meet like 5, 6, 7 times, and I'm only going to have to meet for an hour, and I'm only going to have to do it for 6 months. This helps you with the endurance and staying focused.
Well, great, Mac. Thank you so much for your time. I see we're about at 3:45, so perfectly timed presentation. Everyone online, this has been recorded, so if you enjoyed it, we will make it available on the SIGUCCS website so you can share it with your colleagues. It'll probably be up there in the next couple days, and as I mentioned already, we will be looking at opening up applications for the next cohort for SIGUCCS mentoring. This year we've had about 18 pairings. We've had as many as, I believe, 20 to 24 in past years, and it really is a nice way to give back. But of course, no matter whether you use SIGUCCS or another avenue, the most important thing, to Mac's point, is to look to develop your own personal career and or to give back to others, because everybody has something to give to someone else. I firmly believe that, and I know Mac does as well.
I do.
So thank you, everybody. I appreciate your time, and maybe I'll see some of you at the SIGUCCS conference or EDUCAUSE in the upcoming weeks.